On that day, I was filled with boundless joy as I prepared a table full of dishes that my wife had always been particularly fond of. Subsequently, I drove in haste to that store which she had long yearned for, solely with the intention of purchasing the savory fresh meat mooncakes that she cherished the most. On the way, the screen of my mobile phone illuminated, and it was a message sent by her. I have to work overtime at the company overnight on an urgent basis. Don't wait for me. In an instant, all my heartfelt anticipation shattered like bubbles. On the way back home, that scene was like a thorn that pierced directly into my heart. I actually saw her walking side by side affectionately with her superior into the hotel. I was reluctant to believe it and refused to accept it, so I stubbornly waited in the car for the entire night. However, in the end, what I waited for was the scene of my wife and her superior embracing passionately and bidding farewell reluctantly at the entrance of the hotel the next morning. At that moment, the fresh meat mooncakes in the car had long lost their warmth, and my heart, just like these mooncakes, had turned completely cold. The sun rose as usual, yet for me, everything had already changed. Having witnessed Jiang He embracing and kissing another man with my own eyes, I finally had to admit that my marriage might be on the verge of coming to an end. I sat in a daze in the car for a long time, with a complex mix of emotions in my heart, before reluctantly starting the car and driving away slowly. When I returned home, Jiang He had already taken a shower and was lying languidly on the sofa in her nightgown. Upon hearing the sound of the door opening, her feeble yet accusing voice immediately rang out. "Wang Yu, where on earth did you go early in the morning?" I worked overtime all night and was exhausted to the point of collapse. When I got home, there wasn't even a warm breakfast. What kind of husband are you? In the past, whenever Jiang He worked overtime, no matter how late it was, I would eagerly wait for her return and carefully prepare nutritious and non-fattening meals for her. At first, she would be filled with pleasant surprise, hugging me tightly and sweetly saying, "It's so wonderful to have you." But I don't know since when, she began to take my efforts for granted. And what on earth was the real reason for her so-called overtime work that made her this exhausted? Thinking of this, my heart seemed to be scratched by countless sharp nails, causing a dull and continuous pain. I said in a cold tone, "I am your husband, not your servant." Upon hearing this, Jiang He looked at me in surprise. Then, she angrily pointed at the balcony and shouted loudly, "Didn't we agree that since you were relatively idle, you would take care of all the household chores? Look at me. I'm so exhausted, yet I still have to wash my own undergarments. And what have you done? Just scold you a bit, and you're unhappy." Upon hearing this, I was taken aback for a moment, and my eyes instinctively turned towards that set of sexy undergarments. In an instant my mind went blank. Jiang He was always busy with work, and I had always been the one taking care of all the household affairs, including washing all her intimate clothes with my own hands. But there were always a few days each month when Jiang He would come back from overtime work and wash her undergarments by herself. Every time after washing, she would pretend to take credit and say that seeing how hard I worked, she would help me out occasionally. Now I finally understood that it wasn't that she felt sorry for me at all. She clearly was afraid that those unspeakable things left on them would be discovered by me. My heart felt stuffy, and my eyes turned red. I questioned her. "Were you really working overtime last night?" My question was so sudden that Jiang He was obviously stunned for a moment. Then, she raised her voice and retorted, "What else could I be doing? I know that the Mid-Autumn Festival holds special significance for you, and you hoped that I could be by your side. But I'm working so hard. Isn't it all for the sake of our family? How could you actually doubt me?" Indeed, the Mid-Autumn Festival held extremely special significance for me. On the Mid-Autumn Festival night 3 years ago, my parents were involved in a car accident. I rushed there as quickly as possible, but I didn't even get to see them for the last time. On this day that was supposed to be a time for family reunion, I tragically lost both of my parents, and became an orphan with no one to rely on. Gazing at the full moon hanging high in the sky, I completely broke down emotionally and burst into tears. At that time, Jiang He stayed by my side and wept with me. She hugged me tightly and solemnly swore that on every Mid-Autumn Festival in the future, she would accompany me like a family member, and would never let me feel sad and lonely. But now, it had only been 3 years, and her vow had already been broken, and she was absent on this Mid-Autumn Festival. "Wang Yu, you must apologize to me. You're just too idle, which is why you're having all these wild thoughts." Jiang He continued to relentlessly accuse me. In the past, whenever I made her unhappy, I would always unconditionally be the first to admit my fault, try to coax her and apologize. But this time, I really didn't want to do that anymore. "If you say you were just working overtime yesterday, then produce evidence to prove it." As soon as I stretched out my hand, Jiang He quickly took a step back, tightly covering her nightgown with both hands. She jumped up and down in anger and shouted, "I worked hard all night, But all you can think about are such filthy things. The more you act like this, the less I'll let you see. Jiang He didn't know that when she was feeling guilty, her voice would unconsciously rise, and her eyes would also become evasive. And that was exactly how she was acting at the moment. In the September weather, which should have been suitable for wearing short sleeves, she was wearing a long-sleeved nightgown with a high collar. I belatedly realized that every time she took the initiative to wash her underwear, she would change into this set of nightgown. What she was trying to hide was self-evident. My heart ached sharply, and that indescribable sadness overwhelmed me like a tide. I was truly exhausted both physically and mentally. No matter how furious she was, I just sat on the sofa with a weary expression. Seeing my abnormal behavior, Jiang He stopped. She turned around, picked up a bag, and handed it to me saying, "Forget it. I know you were feeling bad yesterday when I left you alone. I won't hold it against you. This is for you. Consider it a gift to make up for not being able to accompany you on the Mid-Autumn Festival. Hurry up and cut it, and we can eat it together." There were several green mangoes in the bag, a lush green color. Jiang He rarely prepared gifts for me, but this time, I felt no sense of surprise at all. Because early in the morning at the entrance of the hotel, I heard with my own ears the conversation between her and her superior, Li Li Kai. She said enthusiastically, "A subordinate brought these back from a trip. You like eating mangoes the most, so here you are." Li Li Kai, however, smiled and replied, "I've been having a lot of internal heat recently, so I won't eat them. Besides, I'm already full just from having you." As he said this, he frivolously patted Jiang He's buttocks, and she responded with a coquettish naughty. It turned out that this was just something that someone else didn't want. Seeing that I didn't reach out to take it, Jiang He said angrily, "I've already given you a chance to save face. Take it." I said indifferently, "I'm allergic to mangoes." Jiang He was suddenly a bit embarrassed, but then she said, "Then you can cut them for me to eat. You can't be so unreasonable just because I worked overtime on the Mid-Autumn Festival." I finally couldn't bear it any longer and confronted her directly. "I'm not angry, because you worked overtime on the Mid-Autumn Festival. I saw you and Li Li Kai going into the hotel. What kind of overtime work requires you to stay together all night, and even kiss when you part?" Null Chapter 3. You actually followed me. I'm your wife, not a criminal. How could you treat me like this? After a brief moment of panic, Jiang He turned the tables. "I went to buy you savory fresh meat mooncakes. I just happened to pass by that hotel on my way back. Alright, I was indeed with him last night." With the facts staring her in the face, Jiang He admitted it. Yet she didn't feel that she had done anything wrong. "You should understand me. I have no background, no support. No matter how hard I try, I won't be noticed. I can only use my body in exchange for a backer. After all, it's because you as a husband are incompetent that I have to work so hard." I fell silent for a moment. Was it really my fault? She seemed to have forgotten that it was she who had asked me to sacrifice my career for her. Moreover, this wasn't the main point. I stared fixedly at her and said, "Jiang He, no matter what your reasons and hardships are, you have betrayed our marriage, and I can't accept that." My words brought about Jiang He's fury. "I'm making sacrifices for this family. What right do you have not to accept it? Since you don't accept it, get out of my house." My hand tightened involuntarily, and my heart seemed to be stabbed by Jiang He's words. Her house. Yes, the property ownership certificate was in her name, and she was mainly responsible for the mortgage repayment now. She indeed had the right to tell me to leave. I turned and left, and she didn't try to stop me. At this moment, I realized that all the sacrifices I had made by giving up my future were nothing but a joke. Walking on the street, I posted a status on Moments, asking if there were any suitable houses for short-term rent. My junior sister, Cheng Qingya, called immediately. Learning that it was for me to live alone, she said that there was an empty room in her 3-bedroom house and could rent it to me. Considering the cohabitation of a man and a woman, I declined politely. "Thank you, but it's not very convenient." "It won't be. I've rented another room to senior brother Peng Bo. There's nothing inconvenient." Hearing her say this, I thanked her and went to the address she provided. Peng Bo arrived out of breath half an hour later, still carrying a suitcase, saying that he had just returned from a business trip. I didn't think much of it. When I saw them, I felt quite emotional. The three of us were from different academic years in the computer science department, and were all the favorite disciples of our teacher. After graduation, they fulfilled their ambitions in this field, and lived up to the teacher's expectations. While I only found a job as a network administrator in a small company, looking back now, the teacher must be very disappointed in me. Peng Bo looked at my down and out appearance and raised his eyebrows. "Junior brother Wang, you haven't been dumped, have you? Izrajo said that that woman isn't." Cheng Qingya tugged at him and said, "Don't pry into other people's affairs." She didn't ask anything, just said, "Senior brother Wang, Peng Bo and I have opened a game company. It has developed very well over the years. Are you interested in coming? With your addition, It will surely be like adding wings to a tiger. Peng Bo muttered. Why is he senior brother Wang? And I'm just called by my name. Well, I can't compare with your senior brother Wang. Over the years, you've even taken care of his wife's business. Cheng Qingya rushed to cover his mouth in a hurry. Don't talk nonsense. I was a bit surprised. Jiang He had also told me that there were several times when the business seemed hopeless, but it was finally successfully negotiated. It turned out that Cheng Qingya was the one helping. Senior brother Wang, why don't you consider it? You're welcome to join at any time if you're willing. Okay, it would be my honor. I agreed directly. From the lesson in front of me, I realized that a man still has to have his own career. Chapter 4. Throughout the night, Jiang He didn't make a single call or send a single message. Perhaps she was still waiting for me to bow my head and apologize as usual. But this time I wouldn't. In the unfamiliar environment, I suffered from insomnia. I recalled the time when I was working part-time in college and met Jiang He. Jiang He's family was poor, and she had to bear her tuition and living expenses by herself. At that time, she worked several part-time jobs a day and could still win the first-class scholarship every year. After we got together, I said I would work hard to make her less tired. Jiang He, however, said seriously that she had never felt safe since she was a child and didn't want to rely on anyone. If I really loved her, I should support her to be the best version of herself. Although I'm an unremarkable little seedling, through hard work, I will also harvest a golden wheat field. She was very tired, but her eyes were as bright as stars. I was completely charmed by her confident demeanor. In order to give her a sense of security, the house bought with the down payment provided by my parents was also registered in her name only. At that time, Jiang He affectionately hugged me and said that she would remember the kindness of me and my parents for a lifetime. She worked very hard in her career and was promoted rapidly. Before long, her salary was several times mine. She was responsible for the mortgage repayment, and I was responsible for all the living expenses. Gradually, she ignored the meticulous logistical support I provided in daily life. She always said arrogantly that if she didn't work, who would pay the mortgage, and how would we live? She became more and more impatient and disrespectful when talking to me, as if I wasn't her husband but her subordinate, her servant. There were already cracks in our marriage, and her affair was the fuse that completely ignited the conflict. Reason told me that it was time to make a clean break. In my heart, however, there was still a trace of unworthy attachment. I couldn't bear to part with the once shining her, the her who had once been full of me and given me love and warmth. I didn't know what to do. After handling the resignation procedures of the original company, senior brother and junior sister said to give me 2 days off to adjust before going to work. At this time Jiang He called. She softened her voice and said that the company was having a team-building activity for 2 days and 1 night, and wanted to take me there. Seemingly afraid that I wouldn't go, she specifically emphasized that she was the only one bringing a family member. Chapter 5. My feelings were very complicated. I could sense her attempt to save the relationship, but when it came to facing Li Li Kai, I didn't know what irrational things I might do. I just hesitated for a moment, and Jiang He became anxious. Last time, Director Cui came to the company for an inspection and said that I was so excellent that he wondered who could marry me and asked me to bring my family member during the team building. I'm at a critical stage of promotion now. It's really important. Please stop being angry with me, okay? I smiled self-deprecatingly, so she was still doing it for herself. Some kind of insistence in my heart seemed to quietly crumble a little, but I also admitted that she worked very hard. She would stay up all night working on project plans at home, drink with clients until she had a gastric hemorrhage, and even talk about project plans in her sleep at night. Since I happened to have 2 days off, I might as well help her. Just as a thank you for the time she had once accompanied me when I was in the most desperate situation. The team building was held in a holiday village surrounded by mountains and waters. As soon as we got off the car, Jiang He took me to meet Director Cui. Truly a perfect match. Little Wang is so lucky. Jiang He held my arm and smiled brightly. I forced a reluctant smile, but when I turned my head, I saw the looks in the eyes of Jiang He's colleagues. There was sympathy, ridicule, and disdain. I felt as if I had been slapped in the face, and my face burned with pain. It seemed that the affair between Jiang He and Li Li Kai was no secret in the company. Is this little Zhang's husband? Li Li Kai, however, walked over without fear, with the pride and contempt of a victor. Little Jiang is very capable. I'm very satisfied with her work. Hearing his provocative double-meaning words, I clenched my fists. Jiang He, however, gently pulled me, with eyes full of pleading. Honey, this is my superior and my benefactor, Director Li. Sensing Jiang He constantly shaking my arm, I finally didn't lose my temper, and just said a faint In the afternoon, I accompanied her to participate in various team-building activities. In the evening, when we returned to the room, Jiang He hugged me tightly and refused to let go. Honey, I knew you were good to me. Don't worry, I won't have anything to do with him anymore. But before she could finish speaking, Li Likai called. After hanging up the phone, Jiang He hesitated for a moment and still said, "There's a project that the client needs urgently. I have to go and work on it now." I had a bad feeling and subconsciously said, "Don't go." Jiang He, however, didn't look back and said, "This time it's really just work. I'll be back soon." An hour later she came back. Her hair was deliberately restyled, and there was an obvious flush on her face. My already cold heart completely sank into an ice cave. I admit that when I came, I still had a glimmer of reluctance towards you, and wanted to help you with your career. But after all, I'm a man. With me still here, you two are still fooling around. Do you have any respect for me? Jiang He didn't admit it. I questioned. Do you dare to take off your clothes to prove your innocence? Jiang He was speechless. I can't play this game with you anymore. Jiang He tried to stop me. We entangled until we reached the entrance of the holiday village, just in time to see Director Cui chatting with Li Likai. Director Cui saw that we looked unhappy and asked, "Little Jiang, are you having a fight?" Jiang He pleaded with me in a low voice to stay and cooperate with her. Seeing that I didn't stop walking, she gritted her teeth and shook off my hand. Behind me, her somewhat exasperated explanation sounded. "Director Cui, my husband wasn't like this before. After losing his parents, his personality has become a bit strange. He goes crazy from time to time. Don't mind him." Li Likai clicked his tongue twice. Little Jiang told me about this. But it's not her fault that her husband lost his parents. Only incompetent men lose their temper with women. Little Jiang has an unhappy marriage, but can still do so well in her career. She's really very capable. I stopped in my tracks. Jiang He clearly knew how much the pain of losing my parents hurt me. Clearly knew that this was my weakness, my sore spot. But she unscrupulously uncovered, smeared and distorted my wound. Even though it would make me heartbroken, she really wasn't worthy anymore. I turned around and walked quickly in front of Li Likai, and punched him hard. Li Likai stumbled and fell onto Jiang He, and the two of them fell to the ground together. "Since you look down on me so much, let's get a divorce." This time I really wouldn't look back. Chapter 6. After leaving overnight, I directly entered the new company the next day, and embarked on a brand new job. Information in the computer industry changes rapidly. However, during those years when I was a network administrator, my work was rather idle. I didn't give up on myself. Whenever I had free time, I would study and recharge myself to enhance my capabilities. Therefore, I wasn't lagging far behind. I was both adapting to the work and tirelessly absorbing new knowledge. That kind of determination, like the ancient scholars who tied their hair to the beam and pricked their thighs to stay awake, was even stronger than when I was in college. I was like a sponge, allowing work to completely fill me. I was so exhausted every day that I would fall asleep as soon as I hit the bed, and the pain of emotional setbacks was thus diluted. A week later, I had fully adapted to the new environment. Jiang He called me again. "The board of directors has approved my promotion." She hadn't changed at all. As soon as she opened her mouth, it was still only about work and herself. But there was no longer any ripple in my heart. Ibambanda said, "Congratulations. Are you still angry with me?" I had no choice that day. For the sake of my future, I didn't want any complications, so I agreed to him. That was the last time. I didn't want to listen anymore and interrupted her. "I'm not angry." Jiang He, however, was convinced that I was angry. She said helplessly, "You vented your anger that day. You hit him, and made such a scene in front of Director Cui. Fortunately, he didn't hold it against me, and it didn't affect my work. Can we call it even, okay?" I was still indifferent, whatever. There was a faint anger in Jiang He's voice. "I took the initiative to coax you. What more do you want? Don't you like the feeling of home? Come back today to celebrate my promotion. Cook a good meal. I won't drive you away again." Listening to her haughty tone, I remembered the way she had bossily told me to get out that day. Even now, she still thought that I could be summoned and dismissed at will. However, the me who was once willing to sacrifice myself to accommodate and tolerate her was gone forever. No need. For me, that's no longer my home, and your affairs are no longer worthy of my celebration. I thought that after I said it so directly, Jiang He would be angry. Unexpectedly, there was a moment of silence on the phone, and there was actually a hint of flattery in her voice. "I didn't expect you to be so angry this time. No matter what you think, we have to meet and talk about the future, right? How about this? Let's go to a restaurant for dinner. There's a Michelin-starred Western restaurant that's really delicious. I'll send you the address." I thought it made sense. Since I had decided to get a divorce, we had to go through the formalities. That night, I arrived at the French restaurant that Jiang He mentioned as promised. Jiang He arrived earlier than me, which was rare. She greeted me with a smile. I've already ordered the dishes. They're all the signature dishes here. Just wait and enjoy the delicious food." I looked at her, and was a little lost in thought when I heard that affectionate "you." Jiang He had a high ponytail, wearing jeans and a white shirt, looking clean and fresh, just like the way I first saw her in college. Once upon a time, She was always inseparable from me, calling me a you one after another, with such a sweet and attached tone. Jiang He took my hand, looking very emotional. Although life is better now, I've never forgotten the past. A you, in my heart, you are an irreplaceable existence. I can achieve what I have today, and it's also inseparable from your efforts. I remember all of these. I promise you, this time I really broke up with him, and I will completely return to the family. Chapter 7. Jiang He began to keep recalling our beautiful past. She mentioned that I spent a whole month writing a code and selling it to a game company just to buy her a white gold bracelet for her birthday, and that although she was already short of sleep due to working part-time and studying, she still set aside an hour every day to learn how to knit a scarf, just to give it to me at Christmas. I rode a bicycle, carrying her across the campus. She held me tightly, and I could even feel her heartbeat. After getting the marriage certificate and moving into a new home, we nestled by the window, looking at the lights of thousands of houses and imagining our future. At that time, we thought that in all the years and all the futures to come, we would always have each other. Jiang He kept talking, with tears glistening in her eyes, and even I was a bit touched. There were really too many beautiful memories of our past. Just then, the waiter came to serve the dishes, and the boss also came over with a smile to chat. Miss Jiang, would you like to take out the wine that you and your husband have stored here to share with your friends? The warmth that had been painstakingly built up was like a mirage, disappearing without a trace in an instant. So this was a place she had been to with Li Li Kai. Since they had stored wine here, they must be regular customers. How close were these two that the boss thought they were a couple? I didn't want to think about it anymore, and got up with a cold face. Jiang He hastily grabbed me. The boss made a mistake. Sit down and eat something first. I pointed to the mango shrimp salad on the table and said, I told you, I'm allergic to mangoes. And the bloody steak. I only eat steak medium well done. We had lived together for so long. I had said these things many times. Jiang He kept saying she wanted to keep me, but she still couldn't remember my dietary taboos and preferences. I was so busy that I forgot. We can change the salad, and the steak can be cooked some more. I shook my head. This is just the smallest problem. When I confirmed your affair, when you no longer respected me, when you resorted to any means for the sake of your future, sacrificed yourself, and even tore open my wound in front of everyone, there was no possibility for us anymore. Jiang He, you have long deviated from your original intention, and are no longer the person I once knew. I'm serious about getting a divorce. Find some time and let's go through the formalities. Even after I said all this, Jiang He still refused to let go. No, I haven't changed. I will prove that my love for you hasn't changed. She chased after me all the way trying to keep me. Jiang He's phone kept ringing. She looked at me with a cold expression and suddenly showed me the screen. It was a call from Li Li Kai. I said I could break up with him for you. Just say the word, and I'll hang up the phone and ignore him. For me, I found it ridiculous. Being loyal to each other in marriage was the most basic bottom line, wasn't it? But I knew she couldn't listen and couldn't understand. It was pointless to say more. I was indifferent and said, it's up to you. Jiang He said in a fit of pique. Then I'm really going to find him. Don't regret it. I didn't say anything and walked in the opposite direction. I know you're still angry. I'll contact you later. Behind me, Jiang He's voice was broken by the wind and drifted away. Chapter 8. The next day after work, I went to the supermarket to buy groceries with Peng Bo and Cheng Qingya, planning to go back and cook. When we were almost at the entrance of the community, I remembered that I had forgotten to buy chopped chili sauce. This is the sole sauce for fish head with chopped peppers. I'll go buy it right away. Peng Bo said, and turned back to the supermarket. Cheng Qingya and I continued to walk back, but we saw Jiang He's figure at the entrance of the community. Jiang He widened her eyes, looked at the groceries in my hand, and then at Cheng Qingya standing beside me. Her face became increasingly ugly. I asked around a lot before I heard that you lived here. I even lowered my pride to come and find you. I didn't expect you to be living with this woman. Jiang He was very emotional. No wonder you're so determined to divorce me. So you're the one who had an affair. You say I resorted to any means? But I did it for my future, while you're doing it to vent. How can you stand on the moral high ground and accuse me? How much better are you? As she spoke, there was actually a sense of relief and rejoicing in her eyes. I said that with so much social pressure and so many temptations, how could you possibly remain unmoved? You didn't stay faithful to the marriage either. We're on a par. So, she was rejoicing that I was the same kind of person as her. Unfortunately, she was bound to be disappointed. I said, don't assume that everyone is like you. We're just a landlord and a tenant. Jiang He simply didn't believe it. She looked at me expectantly. If you say so, then Li Li Kai and I are just a superior and a subordinate. I've told you long ago that it's really hard for me to get ahead on my own. I really only had a physical relationship with him. My heart still belongs entirely to you. Now, I don't care whether you're just having a fling with this woman or not. We're even. In short, let's forget the past, focus, and start over, okay? Chapter 9. Listening to Jiang He's unreasonable arguments, I knew that we were no longer on the same path. Our hearts had long diverged. I'll say it again. There's nothing between her and me, and there's no possibility between you and me. Jiang He was unwilling to accept it. She pointed at Cheng Qingya with an unfriendly look. You couldn't have really fallen for this woman, could you? Why does this woman look so familiar? I remember. She's from our university, isn't she? Could it be that you two got together at school? Jiang He's voice became increasingly sharp, and she raised her hand to hit Cheng Qingya. Enough. I couldn't bear it anymore and grabbed her wrist, pushing her away. Wang Yu, you're hitting me for another woman? Don't forget, we're not divorced yet. Just as Jiang He rushed towards me, crying and shouting in grief, Peng Bo came back. He was startled and said, I just went to buy some chopped chili. Why does it feel like someone wants to chop you up? I said to Jiang He wearily, see? The three of us live together. Only then did she realize that she had really misunderstood me, and turned from anger to joy. So you still have feelings for me in your heart, right? I really know I was wrong. Let's not get a divorce. No. Jiang He, you betrayed the marriage and removed yourself from my heart with your own hands. I'll say it again. There's no possibility between us. Unexpectedly, Jiang He resorted to being a shrew. Who said I betrayed the marriage? There's no evidence. Without evidence, I'm not wrong. Anyway, you can't get rid of me. You can't divorce me. I didn't expect Jiang He to be so unreasonable. Cheng Qingya said carefully. I'm sorry. It's not without evidence. I just recorded the conversation. Jiang He was stunned and said, why did you record it? This is a public place, and my recording can be considered self-defense, right? Hearing this, I heaved a big sigh of relief. Jiang He, you said you're about to be promoted. At this crucial moment, you don't want the evidence of your admitting to an affair to be sent to the board of directors, do you? You can choose between a peaceful divorce and having your future affected by a scandal. Jiang He looked hurt and said, are you threatening me? Not really, because you're the one who hurt me. Jiang He seemed very sad, but she made a decision quickly and agreed to divorce me. On the day we got the divorce certificate, Jiang He was still muttering that she wouldn't give up on me. However, after answering a call from Director Cui of the company, she immediately left with a nervous look on her face. What she cared about the most was always herself, and I had always been the choice that was sacrificed. Fortunately, I no longer cared about her either. Her actions could no longer hurt me. I indulged in my work, starting from training with the team, and finally being able to independently take the lead in designing a game. I had a preliminary concept for this game a long time ago and gradually shaped it. Jiang He and I had some mutual friends, and I heard that she didn't seem to be having a smooth time. But since we had already become strangers, those things had nothing to do with me. Until one night, Jiang He came knocking on the door furiously. Her target was actually Cheng Qingya. Chapter 10. Recently, I haven't been able to sign deals smoothly. After inquiring for a long time, I found out that it was you who were causing trouble. I knew you had ill intentions. You've been eyeing Wang Yu for a long time. Cheng Qingya, are all the men in the world dead? Why do you have to compete with me and use such despicable means? You have to give me an explanation today, or no one will have a good time. Seeing that Peng Bo and I were both standing in front of Cheng Qingya, Jiang He looked extremely sad and unwilling. You said I resorted to any means. Isn't this woman the same? Why are you so double-standard? I think you just don't love me anymore, have a new love, and are just looking for an excuse to dump me. You're such a scumbag. Cheng Qingya, who had been silent when scolded by Jiang He, suddenly stepped forward. I won't allow you to talk about senior brother Wang like that. I admit that I've always liked senior brother Wang, but when I met him, he already had you as his girlfriend. He didn't even know my feelings and naturally, he never responded to me. Over the years, I just couldn't let him go. Seeing him give up the field he was good at and loved, I felt very sorry for him. I hoped that his sacrifice would be worthwhile. So once when I accidentally found out that you were bidding for the advertising promotion of one of our company's games, I let you win. I've done quite a few things like this within my ability, not for anything else, just because since senior brother Wang wanted to be the man behind you, then I was willing to use my connections to give you a boost. But I'm not that great. I couldn't continue to help you after you betrayed him. From beginning to end, the one I wanted to help was him. Now, I just asked my friends to take back the privileges given to you and let you compete fairly. The reason you can't sign deals is your own lack of ability. Instead of complaining, you might as well go back and improve yourself. At first, Jiang He was reluctant to believe it, but Cheng Qingya spoke so frankly. She realized that all of this was true. Over the years, she had unknowingly received a lot of favors from Cheng Qingya. Jiang He was used to being selfish in love, and Cheng Qingya's purity even made her feel a bit ashamed. She almost fled in embarrassment. After Jiang He left, the atmosphere became a bit awkward. Peng Bo scratched his head and said, Do I seem a bit redundant? Should I move out? Cheng Qingya, however, said nonchalantly, I just said I liked him to make her give up. Don't think too much about it. But I wasn't blind. Through this period of getting along, I could feel Chung Qingya's feelings for me. Even the reason she brought Peng Bo to live together was to provide me with a place to stay. Her sincere words just now really touched me. But I had just ended a terrible relationship, and my life was in a mess. I wanted to focus on work and find myself first. Moreover, I also discovered that Chung Qingya came from a wealthy family. This game company was mainly funded by her. The experience with Jiang He made me realize that a marriage with unequal strength would only be precarious and difficult to last. The gap between Chung Qingya and me was too big. I didn't want to repeat the same mistakes. Since Chung Qingya said she had no special feelings for me, I was also willing to maintain the status quo. I dedicated myself wholeheartedly to the game development. A few months later, during the company's recruitment, I came to the conference room as the main interviewer. But I was surprised to find that the job applicant was actually Li Likai. Chapter 11. The moment he saw me, Li Likai was extremely embarrassed and knew that he had no hope. After the interview he caught up with me. You must be very happy to see me in this state, right? Li Likai told me that after Jiang He was promoted, she started to set traps for him. She had gathered a lot of materials that could threaten him both publicly and privately, forcing him to resign. He had encountered difficulties everywhere in the advertising industry, so he was determined to find a job in a client company he had cooperated with. But he had no relevant experience. Although he kept lowering his requirements, he still didn't receive a single offer. After losing his job in middle age, the mortgage and his child were weighing him down. Jiang He treated you so badly back then. You must be angry, right? How about we join forces to take revenge on her? A distorted look flashed across Li Likai's down and out face. I said calmly, there's no need for that. Li Likai was not willing to give up and still wanted to persuade me. Jiang He cuckolded you. Aren't you angry? You don't know how wild and active she was in bed. Li Likai, I'm different from you. Dandandik interrupted his inappropriate words. I was hurt in love, but betrayal and loss have made me gain more. I just want to look forward. She's not worth me wasting any more energy on. Unlike you, what you got was a lesson and an irreparable punishment. You deserve it. Since he liked to be hurtful, then let's see who was better at it. Sure enough, these words that hit the mark made Li Likai's face look very ugly. He lowered his head and left dejectedly. I didn't care what would happen to Li Likai next. Until once I had a dinner with clients. We had a great conversation, and I drank a lot. After it was over, I called a Didi. The driver who took the order was Master Li. When the car arrived, I saw that this Master Li was Li Likai. The moment Li Likai saw me, he dodged my gaze like an electric shock, and his face turned as red as if he had been slapped in public. But I just closed my eyes indifferently and started to doze off. Half a year later, the game I designed was launched. It had a great response. The revenue on the first day of its launch exceeded 10 million. A month later, financial magazines and various media all came to interview me. They had foreseen that I would have a place on this year's list of emerging wealthy people. After finishing an interview, I returned to the company and saw Jiang He waiting downstairs for a long time. Chapter 12. You can deceive others, but you can't deceive me. You still have me in your heart. This game is the proof. I stopped. Jiang He then happily told me that she was doing well and had been promoted again. I've achieved everything I wanted in my career and realized even more how important family is. Without you to share it with, my success doesn't seem to bring much joy. She eagerly grabbed my arm. Before, in our marriage, you were weak and I was strong, which led to many conflicts. But now we can be said to meet at the top. Let's start over. I said I would win you back, and I'm serious. I refused her and said, Jiang He, you just want me to add to your glory. But what I need is a partner who will stay by my side and be loyal to me even when difficulties come. I can do it. I will definitely be able to do it in the future. I also downloaded your game. It's full of our memories. You still care about me, right? Facing her eager eyes, I shook my head indifferently. Those are memories for you. For me, they are just experiences of my past life and have nothing to do with you. My life is still going on, and there will be more and more experiences that you have never participated in. That's all. No, I don't believe it. Just as she was speaking, Chung Qingya returned to the company after finishing a business negotiation. My eyes lit up, and I naturally walked over and took her hand. Jiang He, I've already told you that my life is still going on. Looking at Chung Qingya and me walking into the office building hand in hand, Jiang He burst into tears. She didn't follow. Perhaps she finally understood that some people once missed would really never come back. Wang, senior brother Wang, I know you're using me as a shield. I won't misunderstand. Chung Qingya stammered, her face red, trying to pull her hand away, but finding that she couldn't. Qingya, would you like to continue the future life with me? When Chung Qingya thought I was happy, she silently waited. When I was down, she stayed by my side. After going through so much, I saw clearly my feelings and finally had the ability to love her as an equal. Cheng Qingya cried, but then she laughed while crying. When I held her in my arms, Peng Bo's exclamation came from behind. Damn it, this time I'm really redundant. Cheng Qingya and I looked at each other and smiled. Not long after, I heard from mutual friends that Director Chui's wife came to the company to deal with the mistress. And that mistress was Jiang He. After all, she had just switched from one backer to another. And the reason Jiang He could get rid of Li Likai was just that she served as Director Chui's pawn. She was the victim of internal strife. Director Chui was old enough to be her father, and his wife was even more formidable. Jiang He was notorious and was blacklisted in the industry, with no place to stand. But after her situation became difficult, she didn't come to look for me again. Perhaps that was her last bit of pride. Just like at the beginning, she was like a tenacious seedling, growing towards the sun, shining brightly and making me fall in love with her. How wonderful it would be if life could always be like the first encounter. Unfortunately, there was no if. At this moment, I was holding Cheng Qingya's hand and boarding the plane. We had agreed to negotiate business first, and then go on vacation in the Aegean Sea for a few days. My heart was very big enough to want to conquer the world. My heart was also very small enough to only hold one person. In my opinion, this was the best appearance of life and love. The end of the full text.